Welcome back to our channel, your premier destination for the most explosive daily updates and deep dives into the glamorous, scandalous world of Los Angeles fashion. Today is a beautiful day to unpack the latest jaw-dropping twists, so grab your favorite cup of coffee, settle in, and let us explore the monumental betrayals and dangerous secrets unfolding this week. The morning sun piercing through the sleek blinds of the Forrester Creations CEO office brings with it a harsh, unforgiving reality for Steffy Forrester Finnegan. As the haze of alcohol and shared grief begins to lift, Steffy awakens to a scene that will forever alter the trajectory of her life and her marriage. She is completely unclothed, lying next to a similarly disrobed Carter Walton. The visceral shock of the moment hits her like a physical blow, leaving her completely horrified and paralyzed by the magnitude of her actions. This was not merely a momentary lapse in judgment. It was the ultimate betrayal, a catastrophic crossing of boundaries with a man who has been a trusted friend and a pillar of stability in her world. The remnants of their drunken, passionate night are scattered across the room, serving as a cruel visual reminder that the pristine image of the Finnegan marriage has been irreversibly shattered by her own hands. The crushing weight of Steffy's guilt is magnified by the sheer hypocrisy of her current situation. Only days ago, she was standing on the sun-drenched beaches of Monaco, hurling her wedding ring at John Finnegan in a fit of absolute, self-righteous fury. She had felt utterly betrayed because Finn had kept the secret of Sheila Carter's presence on his commercial flight, interpreting his panicked silence as a dangerous defense of the psychopathic woman who had once left them both for dead in a dark alley. Steffy had fled Europe on a commercial flight, drowning her trauma and her severe post-traumatic stress disorder in heavy liquor, convinced that her husband had committed an unforgivable sin. Yet, in her desperation to numb the pain of Finn's perceived betrayal, she has committed a far graver one. She has desecrated her marital vows in the very heart of her family's fashion empire, seeking comfort in the arms of a man who was simultaneously mourning the tragic departure of his own wife, Daphne Rose Walton. As Steffy scrambles to gather her clothes and her fractured dignity, she realizes that the psychological burden of this secret will be a heavy cross to bear. She returns to the Cliff House, her sanctuary, only to be met by the desperate, pleading eyes of the husband she just betrayed. Finn has frantically rushed back to Los Angeles, a broken man terrified of losing the family that means everything to him. He launches into a deeply emotional, tear-filled apology, laying his soul bare as he begs for a second chance. Finn attempts to explain the agonizing position he was in, clarifying that he did not collude with Sheila to ruin their romantic getaway. He simply panicked when he discovered his biological mother on his flight, making a desperate, misguided pact to keep her presence a secret in exchange for her promise to stay away from Steffy. Finn's remorse is palpable, his love for Steffy radiating from every frantic word as he vows to do whatever it takes to earn back her trust and banish Sheila from their lives forever. Faced with Finn's raw vulnerability, Steffy is thrust into an agonizing internal war. The guilt gnawing at her soul is almost suffocating, yet she quickly realizes that confessing her night with Carter would be the definitive end of her marriage. In a masterclass of psychological deflection, Steffy chooses to use her lingering anger over the Monaco disaster as a shield. By focusing entirely on Finn's mistake regarding Sheila, she can mask the monumental sign she harbors within. She berates him, she cries, and she demands absolute loyalty, all while a dark, hypocritical voice in her head reminds her that she is the one who truly destroyed their sacred bond. Ultimately, Steffy begins to realize that the only viable way to bury the scandalous truth of her affair with Carter is to graciously accept Finn's apologies and grant him the second chance he is begging for. The SINN marriage may survive this crisis on paper, but it will now be a hollow shell built on a foundation of toxic lies and ticking time bombs. The situation grows exponentially more complicated and tragic with the sudden, unexpected return of Daphne Rose Walton from Paris. Daphne had fled Los Angeles in the throes of a severe functional depression following her devastating infertility and early menopause diagnosis. Convinced that she was a broken woman holding Carter back from his lifelong dream of having a family, she had chosen to walk away. However, the distance and the time alone have allowed Daphne to realize the magnitude of her mistake. She has returned to Los Angeles ready to fight for her marriage, eager to apologize to Carter and find alternative paths to parenthood together. Daphne's return is a beautiful testament to her love, but it arrives at the most tragic possible moment. She is completely oblivious to the fact that her devoted husband, drowning in his own grief over her departure, has just crossed the ultimate line with Steffy. As the secrets mount, longtime viewers of The Bold and the Beautiful are already bracing for the inevitable, dramatic fallout that always accompanies such scandalous encounters. The looming threat of a pregnancy trope hangs heavily over this storyline. Steffy has a notorious history of complex paternity mysteries, having previously endured agonizing DNA tests for both Kelly and Hayes. The cruel, twisted irony of the current situation is impossible to ignore. Daphne is suffering from a heartbreaking inability to conceive, while Steffy, who is highly fertile, has just engaged in unprotected, drunken intimacy with Daphne's husband. If Steffy were to discover she is pregnant with Carter's child, the revelation would not only decimate the Finnegan marriage, but would also inflict an unimaginably cruel psychological wound on Daphne. The mere possibility of this outcome ensures that Steffy and Carter will be living in a constant state of paralyzing fear, wondering when their dark secret will finally claw its way into the light. While the Forrester and Finnegan families grapple with their hidden betrayals, a different kind of storm is brewing within the Spencer clan. Katie Logan Spencer, armed with her fiercely protective maternal instincts, is growing increasingly suspicious of Melissa Dillon. Katie has never fully trusted the young woman who so quickly embedded herself into the lives of the Forrester and Spencer heirs, but her vague unease is rapidly crystallizing into genuine alarm. During a seemingly innocuous conversation, Dillon makes a critical slip of the tongue, repeatedly mentioning how intimately familiar she has been with the Spencer family since her childhood. Dillon casually reveals that she grew up obsessively reading Ion Fashion magazine, tracking the glamorous lives, the immense wealth, and the sprawling influence of Bill Spencer and his sons. For Katie, this revelation is like a bucket of ice water. It shatters the illusion that Dillon's entry into their orbit was merely a serendipitous coincidence. Katie's sharp mind begins to connect the scattered dots, painting a deeply disturbing portrait of Melissa Dillon's true motives. Dillon did not just happen to become best friends with Electra Forrester, and she certainly did not just happen to be in the right place at the right time to comfort a heartbroken Will Spencer. Katie realizes that Dillon's entire trajectory in Los Angeles has been a calculated, predatory infiltration fueled by a lifelong, borderline obsessive fascination with the Spencer dynasty. Dillon has been playing a long, strategic game, positioning herself as the sweet, supportive confidant while actively working to dismantle Will's relationship with Electra. Katie recognizes the classic signs of a manipulator who will stop at nothing to secure her proximity to power and wealth, and she is terrified that her son is walking blindly into a carefully laid trap. The depth of Katie's dread is magnified 1,000-fold when her thoughts turn to the dark, chilling history surrounding Melissa Dillon. The memories of Luna Nozawa's tragic and sudden death come flooding back with terrifying clarity. Katie vividly recalls the shocking moment when Dillon, in a bizarre and highly suspicious encounter with Electra, seemingly confessed to being involved in Luna's demise. At the time, the circumstances surrounding Luna's fatal accident were murky, but now, viewed through the lens of Dillon's calculated obsession with Will, the tragedy takes on a sinister new light. Was Luna's death truly a horrific accident, or was it a cold-blooded, orchestrated murder designed to permanently remove the primary obstacle standing between Dylan and the Spencer heir? The possibility that Dylan is not just a gold-digging opportunist, but a ruthless, calculating killer sends shivers down Katie's spine. Katie realizes that Will is currently in the most vulnerable state of his life. He is spiraling into a deep, alcohol-fueled depression following his violent altercation with R.J. Forrester and the subsequent permanent end of his relationship with Elektra. Will is desperately seeking comfort and validation, making him the perfect, unsuspecting prey for a predator like Dylan. To make matters worse, Bill Spencer's misguided advice to Will aggressively urging his son to forget Elektra, play the field, and embrace this new chapter is actively pushing Will directly into Dylan's waiting arms. Katie knows she must act swiftly and decisively to expose Dylan's dark past and her true, terrifying nature before Will makes a commitment that could cost him his future or perhaps even his life. The stakes have never been higher for the Spencer matriarch as she launches a fierce, clandestine investigation into the shadows of Melissa Dillon's history. Meanwhile, the toxic fallout of Will and Elektra's spectacular breakup is creating a highly volatile atmosphere within the sleek, glass-walled corridors of Forrester Creations. The tension reaches a boiling point when Melissa Dillon and Elektra Forrester engage in a fierce, hostile confrontation in the design offices. Elektra, deeply humiliated by the failure of her relationship and furious over Will's deception regarding the Logan corporate secrets, is projecting her immense pain and bruised ego onto her former best friend. Elektra is fully aware that Dylan has been hovering around Will, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, and the confirmation that Dylan has succeeded in seducing the Spencer heir is more than Elektra can bear. The confrontation quickly devolves into a bitter, venomous clash of wills, highlighting the stark contrast between Elektra's inherent Forrester entitlement and Dylan's ruthless, calculated ambition. During the explosive argument, Dylan makes no effort to hide her triumphant satisfaction. She boldly and unapologetically gloats about her victory, rubbing her intimate connection with Will directly in Elektra's face. Dylan knows exactly how to push Elektra's buttons, casually mentioning the time she spent comforting Will on his couch and the passionate kisses they shared while Elektra was busy judging him. Dylan's smug demeanor is a direct challenge to Elektra's authority, a clear statement that she does not respect Elektra's boundaries, her feelings, or her legacy. Dylan views Elektra not as a superior, but as a defeated rival who was too foolish to hold on to the prize. This blatant disrespect infuriates Elektra, pushing her inflated sense of entitlement into dangerous, abusive territory. Driven by blinding jealousy and a desperate need to regain control, Elektra decides to wield her family's immense corporate power as a weapon. She draws herself up, channeling the formidable, ruthless energy of her grandfather, Eric, and explicitly threatens to terminate Melissa Dillon's employment at Forrester Creations. Elektra barks that she has the authority to have Dylan escorted out of the building by security if she does not immediately back away from Will Spencer and show some respect to the Forrester name. It is a harsh, uncompromising ultimatum designed to force Dylan into submission, a raw display of nepotistic power meant to crush the ambitious assistant beneath the heel of the Forrester dynasty. However, Elektra severely underestimates the strategic brilliance and the psychological resilience of Melissa Dillon. Instead of cowering in fear or begging for her job, Dylan meets Elektra's threats with a cold, calculating smirk. Dylan quickly realizes that Elektra's aggressive posturing is actually a massive strategic vulnerability. She calmly points out to the enraged Forrester heiress that firing a talented, dedicated employee simply because of a personal romantic rivalry over a boy would be a disastrous public relations move. Dylan challenges Elektra to go ahead and process the termination, knowing full well that doing so would instantly paint Elektra as a bitter, unhinged and dangerously unprofessional ex-girlfriend who abuses her corporate power to settle petty personal scores. Dylan holds the psychological high ground in this toxic workplace war. She knows that Ridge and Steffy Forrester, who are currently battling a massive PR nightmare due to Hope Logan's defection, would never tolerate Elektra creating another scandal by firing an assistant over a high school-level romantic dispute. Dylan's defiance leaves Elektra trapped in a cage of her own making, fuming with impotent rage as she realizes she cannot easily dispose of the woman who has stolen her man. The battle lines are firmly drawn at Forrester Creations, setting the stage for a prolonged, vicious Cold War between the entitled heiress and the cunning, ambitious climber. As guilt consumes Steffy, as Katie uncovers deadly secrets, and as Elektra and Dylan tear each other apart, the residents of Los Angeles are hurtling toward a series of explosive reckonings that will leave no family unscathed.